Whenever I speak to my peers across the industry, they like to compare banking to digital leaders like Spotify's and Netflix and all those kind of businesses. And the recognition is that financial services is not the same thing. Nobody wants to do banking. So it's not about trying to get the customer's attention and trying to say, well, let's create an experience where they want to spend more time in the app and spend more time on our websites, because nobody wants to do that. It's about, I guess for me, the next stage for the bank will be to almost become invisible in the customer's life, but be there when they want to engage you. And that's, I guess, what we're trying to go for. I definitely see the platformification, i.e., the bank becomes the conduit into any number of different ways to manage your finances, but it's only going to work if it's easy, straightforward, simple, and delivers value. Just becoming, a hypermarket of financial products and services, nobody wants to interact with that. That's the way that you buy time with the customer right now, is through relevance. So customers have got very limited time and a shorter attention span than ever. So if you're not hyper relevant in that interaction, then the customer is not going to want to know. Historically, I think all big banks have seen themselves as almost like a castle or a fortress, and you build walls to keep other people out. Now we recognize that we're part of a financial ecosystem. We're one big tree in an interconnected rainforest, and you can't be siloed in order to thrive in that environment. You have to connect. You have to work with other people. So I think that people will start to access the bank through very different channels, and it may not be the bank itself. And I guess that's okay, but banks have got to work out what role they're going to have. Are they going to sit in the background and kind of be the pipes and do that behind the scenes work? Or are they going to be the platform that owns the relationship? I think right now we're seeing two very different approaches coming out of the banking industry, and it will be interesting to see which one of those develops. I think the key thing for banks to focus on is being easy to deal with. So a lot of the mistakes that we see some of our competitors making, and sometimes RBS is guilty of as well, is trying to overcomplicate and over-engineer customers' experiences to deliver what we think they're going to want. But the reality is that most people just want something that's really easy to understand, really easy to access. And so for us, I guess the height of innovation will be the simplicity of the propositions that we're able to deliver. Right now, mobile is probably the channel where we see the most opportunity, because you're able to use things like geolocation and recognizing where the customer is, what their battery level is like, whether they're paying attention to their phone, and use that as a way of gauging whether it's the right time to interact with them. I think going forward, voice will be an area where we're starting to kick the tires, and will be interesting to see how that develops. And the one that we're looking at with most interest right now is probably voice. In the sense that it is taking off at a rate even quicker than mobile phones did, and we saw just how disruptive that was to the market. I think right now people still look at that from a banking perspective and say that's novelty, it won't ever take off. But it just needs someone to get something that's really slick as a proposition. I think that could be the next big thing. I think it will be the different areas of our life where it starts to permeate. So when it's in your smart car, for example, that will be the kind of area that you'll start to use it. I guess right now a lot of the experiences that people will have with voice haven't even been thought of yet, and that's the exciting thing. I have absolute confidence that in the future, if you take the existing big banks, there'll be two types. There'll be those that are quick and learn to move at pace and partner with others, and then there'll be those that are dead because they don't make that switch. So some of our current incumbents won't make it because they won't make those changes in time. Some of the new to market entrants will break through and they'll scale. I think we're already starting to see that with the likes of Monzo. They'll need to work out how to monetize, but I think they'll become the big banks of the future. But I guess what will be interesting is whether or not those kind of entrants into the market, the big techs, start and leverage the trust that they have and the attention of the consumer that they have, and deliver a lot more in terms of financial services. I guess that's the question mark that's still unanswered for us right now. I don't worry about any one particular competitor. I think the thing that we're more concerned about is almost death by 1,000 cuts. historically, banks always just thought that they could be everything to everybody, and new to market entrants are narrowing down on one niche, right? They pick the thing that they can excel at and they do just that. The problem then for banks is that they end up being average at everything, and the risk is that one day you'll wake up and have no customers. So it's not one big company that will come in and take our knees out, but it's those cuts and little chipping away at our revenue streams that happen on a daily basis from all over. So we bring customers, we bring balance sheet, we bring experience of navigating complex regulatory environment, and despite the history of banks, we bring consumer trust. So people trust us because we operate in what is the most regulated industry in the world. Now, a lot of new to market entrants bring things that we don't have. Innovative technologies, the ability to drive that innovation at pace. And so when you marry up what they can do, when you marry up the assets that we have, that's the recipe for being able to deliver value to customers quickly. And so it's not about competing, it's about collaborating. There's, I guess, a future for both of us if we can work together and harness the best of both worlds. It all comes down to our approach to risk, right? So just sitting there and doing nothing and hoping that you can survive is probably the biggest risk that there is. So the reason that we're doing so many different kind of ventures, and people say, you're not cannibalizing your own revenue because you're competing with yourself. What we're doing there is we're diversifying and hedging our bets. Some of these things will fail, they'll never scale, and that's okay. One or two will break through and they could be our future revenue models. And I guess that's why it's so important for us, is that we're able to do these kind of experiments. We're able to see what works and has value for customers. And I guess that's where we're hanging our tailcoats for the future.